Welcome to the Energy Flow podcast. I am Kelly Kennedy, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Nourish your terrain, organ meats, ancestral nutrition, and real functional food. That's the hot topic today with James Berry from Pluck. And today we're going to dive deep into the connection between real food and true flow. James Berry is a professional chef and the founder of Pluck, which is a functional seasoning that really brings the power of organ meats and be able to taste good to everybody's table here in the modern world without having to actually taste the organ meat, which I personally am passionate about as well. He is passionate about using food not just to satisfy cravings, but to restore the body to its deepest level, from gut health to immune strength to emotional resilience. We'll talk about food density, nutritional density, bioavailable, what makes this different than minerals and why, how it supports the oxygenation in the body, how the fascia and the lymph are supported, and how it keeps us moving and regenerating. And especially talking about the food culture, if you will, of today and the environment and why Pluck is going to be a staple on your table too. So welcome to the Energy Flow podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Kennedy, and welcome to James Berry. Here we go.
It's fascinating because, we are the only species in the world that looks to someone else to tell us what to eat. Yet there's over 9 million species. So that goes to tell you how far away we've come from our innate knowledge of what we should and could be eating.
Hello, and welcome to the Energy Flow podcast. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am here to discuss all things energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. Over my 26 years of being on this journey and 19 years in clinical practice, dealing with chronically ill, chronically pained, to the optimizing of health and to everything in between, we have learned throughout these years how to efficiently and effectively teach people how the body works, get them engaged in that system, help them understand how the universe works and how those two connect. And that's what this Energy Flow podcast is about. Whether you are new to us or you've been a longtime listener of over 4 years now, we are so happy and honored to share our heart's honest truth about what we know, what has worked for us, what's worked in the clinical practice, and what might be the key to your next step in your journey. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing this with all that it will resonate with. We look forward to each and every moment of our genuine connection. Thank you for listening.
So, welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. And today, as you heard in the intro, we have James Berry here, and as I said, we're going to dive in. So, welcome, James. So much gratitude for you sharing time with us today at the Energy Flow podcast. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for having me as a guest, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. As I said to them in the intro, nutrition is something we don't talk a lot about because for various reasons. And yet when I met you a few years ago, originally, I think it was at the Mastermind Summit, you were walking past me, handed me a couple satchels, and I stopped and I was like, wait, really, organ meats? Are they going to taste gross? And you were like, no, really, trust me. And I took those samples home and I used them and they were delicious. And for some reason, timing is everything. I let it go, it wasn't where I was at. And then when I was reintroduced to you through your heart and through seeing who you are through the mastermind now that we're in that group together, I have been so impressed with the being and the joy and the passion behind your company, which I felt that day I stopped you in the hallway. But let's tell them the story because, yes, we're here to talk about seasoning and organ meats. Yum, yum.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you just for sharing that. I feel like so often in life, we walk through and we interact with people. We never actually say things like what you just shared, of how our impressions or how someone makes us feel. So I always appreciate that transparency. So thank you for that. I was one of those kids at a young age. I was very picky. I did not grow up in a foodie household. I also did not grow up eating organ meats. It to this day, my mom is just shocked that she has a chef for a son. But ultimately, I think what I am is I'm a seeker of truth, and I'm a seeker of how I can just truly help people. And food has become my love language. I think from a very young age, at like age 7, I learned how to scramble an egg and I was hooked. But I never saw a career path with it. I just thought of it as a hobby. And then in my 30s, I saw the career path. And even the path I'm living right now is slightly different. But what has been kind of the mainstay is I'm on a mission to help people because I've struggled. I've struggled with picky eating. I've struggled with food issues where I would sometimes like starve myself because I was so like busy and um, I would not eat and then I would binge later that night. So I would just kind of that workaholicness would take over and self-care would be in a distant background.
I mean, I feel like we've all been there. I mean, I've used the term and I've felt and lived all these from me basically about 12 on from anorexia to bulimia to improper eating, improper relationship with food, to orthorexia, to workout orexia, to blood type diet, to here's a healthy way to eat. And learning terrain medicine through the years, I've learned flexitarianism, as we talked about, being a flexible person and enjoying the flavors of life. I've expanded my palate greatly. I still do have a texture thing, so that's why I'm really excited about what you've offered because texture. Oregon, my mother used to make hearts and
What species?
liver,
Chicken hearts?
cow
Oh,
liver.
okay. Beef hearts.
We would get like, half a cows and so forth because we lived in like upstate New York. And that was the liver and the heart nights were the nights I was always at friend's house. And yet, when we had our child, the first thing Silas had outside of my breast milk and Regulat, which is a fermented product, was liver.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learned over the years that that was the most dense. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating because, we are the only species in the world that looks to someone else to tell us what to eat. Yet there's over 9 million species. So that goes to tell you how far away we've come from our innate knowledge of what we should and could be eating. This for me, health, I had really two big linchpins in my life around health. One was I got a kidney stone right out of college. And I was in my early 20s and I was very fortunate in that after it passed, I had a doctor when I asked the question, how can I make sure I never get this again? Like, how did I get this in the first place? And he said, what what have you been eating and drinking? Had he
Wow.
not connected the dots for me in terms
Wow.
of like this kidney stone came from how you were eating and drinking, I don't know if I would have connected that food affected my health at such a young age.
Right.
And so that took me on a whole other, like, just put me on a new trajectory around, oh, okay, I'm going to carry water around all the time. I'm going to just now be more mindful of what I put in my body. The second thing, though, was when I had kids. My why changed. It was no longer just about me. It was really about how do I give my kids the most nourishing food and yet also myself so that I can live as long as possible and thrive as long as possible to experience their lives as they get older, to grow old with them, basically. And so then it became this kind of deep dive into, okay, what truly are the most nutritious foods? Because, marketing wise, we get told almost yearly what the most nourishing, foods
And
are.
it
And yet
changes.
it's
Do eat chicken,
always
don't eat chicken. Eat eggs, don't eat eggs. Eat meat, don't
exactly.
eat.
it's all,
Paleo.
or goji berries is this year, and
Right.
next year is this and that. It's like it's
Always one
always
thing.
totally. It's you can kind of follow each. You know what decade you're in by finding out what's hot, what's
Yep.
trending, right? And I was just kind of sick of it. My whole career, I've been in this business over 20 years as a professional chef, and I'm just always watching these trends and going, this is such the illusion of health. This isn't true health, because what I'm looking for in health is I want things that are going to become lifestyle habits. Anything we do for a month or even a week, I could care less about. It does not move the health needle. It just empties your pockets because you spend all this money on something that you don't actually incorporate into your lifestyle. If and here's where we have to really boil down. Well, how do you incorporate anything that's healthy? It doesn't matter if it's seasoning or anything, exercise, sleep, anything. How do you
Fascia, lymph, get more oxygen, get the water structured, make it live. All these simple yet foundational lifestyle practical steps that really does move the needle. Yeah, I totally agree with you, James.
Yeah. So I look for, particularly around food, I look for things that you do small amounts of daily. So what most Americans do is they focus on, well, how much am I doing? It's like go big or go home, right? That's the American kind of like, I work hard, I play hard. Everyone talks about extremes, but I don't, to me, that's not sustainable. I want things that you do little amounts of, but you're doing them daily. And let's focus on the daily part, because anything you do in any amount, micro amounts to substantial amounts, if you do them daily, they will either negatively affect you or positively affect you. But if you do it every now and then, it's not going to do much.
It's so for me, the science is so simple because I was raised around farms, right? So agriculture, and then I worked in pet stores. So it was all about animals. And then when I went pre-med, long story short, my dad was sick. I was in a car accident, threw me from pre-med to pre-vet because I was so irritated with that whole allopathic system, essentially, at a very young age in my 20s, early 20s. And then I started to learn terrain medicine, and it made so much sense, right? It was like, oh, yeah, because we would never feed our dogs and our cats anything but water, really. Come on. And if we feed a dog something, if we feed them processed food every single day, we know that dog's going to be sick. And we see this now all over the place. And we've always had healthy, long-lasting dogs in our family. And it's so easy for me to look at it and go, well, yeah, because what you feed that dog all the time, just like what you feed that human, it, it's so simple. I've always said minerals, high quality water, oxygen, watch the body heal.
Yeah. Yeah. Get as basic as you can. And then, the sleep obviously is really key as well, but all those things feed good sleep. So,
Well, they allow the parasympathetic, right, which is the natural rhythms of life. So, your daughter's story, could you just share that for just a moment? Because these are the moments that become teaching moments. And I also want to mention too at some point that while we're talking about the nutritional benefits of food as a chef, I'm sure you also enjoy the comforts of food as well, because I personally feel like all humans eat way too much food, yet I do enjoy food. I
yeah.
love good, high quality food that's made with love, the special ingredient. And I'm sure James makes extra high quality, loving food. So I don't want to miss that element. But if you would bring us into what was going on for your daughter when you started to look at this in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my daughters got sick. They got Shiga toxin, which is very deadly for young children and the elderly. Basically, you can't hold anything in, and you cannot take antibiotics. Antibiotics could kill you if you took them. And it's one of those things where my oldest daughter at the time, she was about 5, and my youngest was a little over 1.
Mm.
And the oldest, it passed through fairly quickly, like 3 days. So she got in the clear, but then our youngest, it didn't clear up. It just kept going and going, and she was already a very lean child, and she went to skin and bones, and it was a really scary moment as a parent. I mean, what you know. what is it any parent truly wants is you just want your kids to thrive and be healthy. And here I was watching her wither away, and she couldn't hold anything in. It was, we would call doctors, and they just kept saying, you got to wait it out because there's not much we can do. If it gets really desperate, we'll hook her to an IV and get some fluids in her, but otherwise you just got to wait it out. And I just remember looking at her wither away, and I was thinking, if I wish there was something I could do. And then about day 10, she suddenly could hold in toast, and we're gluten free, so it was gluten free toast. Not that that means anything. It doesn't mean it's healthier. It's just still toast. And I watch. Here we are. My wife's a functional nutritionist. I'm a chef, and we're watching our kid just get addicted to toast because, of course, if that's the one thing that she could eat, she suddenly was like, "That's all I want to eat."
That felt safe, right? Because
Exactly. It was
that's the
safe
number
food.
one thing. If the nervous system doesn't feel safe, it can't heal. So this is where everything was looking like an allergy, everything looked like a response. And she was so young, but she knew to feel safe, this feels good. Look, I had ate it and didn't get a reaction. And she was her own little science experiment. Nobody could tell her, okay,
Oh no, she would not diverge from that toast. And so that's when I started thinking about, gosh, I wish there was something I could put on that toast just to make it healthier, just to make it so that she's getting like more whole, real foods in her diet. And then, skip ahead a few years, that's when I then started thinking about, well, the organ meats of the animal are some of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. And, if you go around the world, most other cultures, most other countries eat them and they're better for it. But here in America, it's really, it's just not something most people are doing. And there's lots of different reasons for that. It could be, if you look through history, it could be because it's seen as poor people's food. It could just be, lack of familiarity. We've lost kind of culinary knowledge around it. You talk to people, and this is something I find very fascinating. You talk to people, and most people who have not even tried them go, "Oh no, that's gross." So I think the idea of them makes people feel vulnerable because you think of your own mortality when you think of organs, right? Because these are things we don't normally see, and then we're so acclimated to muscle meat. The
well,
other
I
thing
was
I
just going to say that, when I was in college, I took what was it called? It was a food science class. It was about meat science. It was called meat science.
oh
And we slaughtered animals and we did, butchered them and made the sausage and all the things. And I grew up on in farms, so none of this. I was a vegetarian at the time because I didn't like meat. Right. I had an
interesting.
issue with how honestly, now I love it. Like we had a filet last night, delicious. No offense, my mother, she did the best she could, but a lot of the food we ate growing up was burnt and
Yeah,
not
us
high
too.
quality meat. And it was fresh. It was often from a half cow. It just how it was prepared wasn't great. So it's interesting because as you were talking about the organ meat, I thought, do people really recognize that they're eating muscle? Should we say, oh, muscle meat versus organ meat? Maybe if we started to use that terminology, people would get over some of that misconception, misinformation that it's all an animal. I mean, I, I remember going to school and other kids learning that animal was what they were eating on their plate. And I was like, what do you mean you didn't know that? Where did you think that came from? Like, I didn't eat it because of, ethical reasons. I didn't eat it because I didn't like it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people to this day, a lot of kids don't even realize that pork is from a pig,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
There is really I mean, nowadays too, I mean, most people they don't even purchase the animal in the form where it looks like an animal. They're just getting a cut, they're getting boneless, skinless chicken breasts, so it doesn't even look like how would you even know that's coming from a chicken unless someone told you that, So there is, or chicken nuggets, right? It's just
Right.
fried. It could be anything, right? Kids
Right.
don't always know. If so, you only know what you know, and if you're not being educated as you eat it, I can see why some people would just be ignorant to it. But all to say, it just shows that we have this disconnect with our food system.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do, because I've identified in my 20 years that the way, well, first of all, I already mentioned one way, but the way to get people to do something lifestyle is you need a couple things. So one is you want to incorporate things that are already habits. You don't want it to be a new habit. So you want it to be very something you can do very doesn't take a lot of time.
Quick switch.
Yeah,
Right.
just a switch, you know.
Yep.
So you want it to be very simple
Quick switch,
or
close gap.
or easy, simple and easy. And then the other thing is you want it to be delicious because we're human. And as you said
Yeah.
earlier, you're like, I enjoy food. Like,
Yeah.
so it's got to be good. And if it hits those two things, easy and delicious, then it becomes lifestyle. If you miss either one of those or only have one and not the other,
It's true.
it will fall off, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So
We have to
easy,
overcome
delicious.
ourselves because in general, we have to admit that our default system is lazy.
Yeah, comfort. We're comfort seekers.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
it's good to know it doesn't matter. It's not a judgment. It's just a knowing that this ecosystem is our terrain, right, of the body, which is our ecosystem, which is mirroring the terrain of the soil, which is depleted. We need a really easy way to overcome that so that allowing us to eat the whole animal, even when we haven't been educated that way, we might have some emotional blockades perhaps to eating that. What James has done is create a very simple, easy lifestyle, delicious way for us to enjoy this in our home and for everybody in the family. So we know we're getting bioavailable food, which is going to, feed the soil of the body, which is going to change the ecosystem, which is going to allow that terrain to shift, which is going to allow the water to and the rivers to flow.
Yeah, it's really I love that you just mentioned that it's for the whole family to share because that's really it's really key. You know, our kids are the canaries in the coal mine. You know, we need to support, we need people to understand at an earlier age about how food affects their health. Don't wait till you're in your early 20s like I was, you know, and some
Or you're
people
sick.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, some people are much even older when they finally learn or they get sick, as you just said. It's like, we can't wait for that. And so, what I created was Pluck, and Pluck is a freeze dried powdered organ meat seasoning. And so it's really the first ever seasoning blend that has grass-fed, grass-finished beef organ meats in it. And we combine it with salt and organic spices and herbs, but we literally make it as easy as just salting your food. And what we're finding is so really, if you think about how are the ways that most people get organ meats in their diet, they either buy them and cook them, which is few and far between, but that is of course an option and it's a great option, or they take capsules with freeze-dried powdered organ meats in them. But when we take capsules, which is what we're really conditioning people to think of health as, oh well, now I have to take supplements. And when we condition people to do that, health becomes an isolated event. It's something you just take, in the corner of your kitchen as you swallow these pills. And you're completely bypassing what I talked about earlier, which is how did we lose this innate knowledge of what to eat? Well, when you swallow a capsule, you bypass this communication pathway, this ancestral communication pathway that has developed over hundreds of thousands of years to determine, to tell us, is this food going to nourish me or is it going to kill me? Our Homo sapien body has not changed much. So that is the current body we're in. And that communication pathway, we call it the neural lingual response, that it was established 100,000 years ago. It's only the last 200 or so years where the food systems have completely changed and we're now confusing that communication pathway. But you completely bypass it when you swallow a capsule. So that's what's happening right now in health. But what happens when you take Pluck, which is really, it's ancestral foods, it's organ meats. We're just trying to get you to eat the whole animal. It's the most nutrient dense part of the animal. And we're not currently eating them. And we used to eat them. So now we're just trying to get you back into eating them. So we're not trying to fool your system. If anything, we're trying to bring safer, more recognizable foods back into your ecosystem. And instead of you swallowing a capsule, we put it in a seasoning. So now you're just sprinkling the food you're already eating. And then to your point of everyone in the family gets to be a part of it, is you can bring it to your dinner table. You can have it on there. Everyone can be sharing this experience. You can put it in the food. You can sprinkle it on top of the food after it's been served. And you can talk about how do you enjoy the food? Oh, it's so good. And that's the comments most people share is like, oh my gosh, this tastes so good. I want seconds. So suddenly this experience becomes this health experience becomes a family tradition of not only does our food taste better, but we can really kind of come together in how we feel as we eat it. And we can get people back in their bodies.
And you can get people back in their bodies. We're going to talk a little bit more about that on the second part, because that's what my husband jokes all the time. Where are they if they're not in their bodies? Well, that is the question, isn't it? And that's what being really means. But it's so key for us to celebrate over food, which is nourishing and healing. Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food. Couldn't agree with you more that a lot of what's happening right now is green pharmacy. And once again, dependent upon pills and so forth, that I do my health things in the morning and at night and throughout the day. I just live my life and I don't have consciousness over it. And it's that relationship of the nourishment that food gives us, and realizing that the micronutrients given over every day and time, and the celebration of it with the love of the family and the awareness instead of hiding it, is how we're actually going to overcome the mammal that's been controlled by society, by news media, by the top down approach of competition and control. And what we're both really passionate and committed to is overcoming the less, they're both important, right? The part of us that's in the sympathetic fight, flight, oh my gosh, fear mode is important. It's just we got to raise consciousness over it and go, wait, food shouldn't be causing me fear. Look, I get nutrients out of it. And as I enjoy and celebrate this with my family, and I have this dense, rich food that tastes delicious, even though it maybe is food I wouldn't normally eat because it's a quote unquote organ meat. The more I do it, the more I'm willing to open myself up, the more flexible I'll become. Next thing you know, I'm buying a whole chicken, I'm eating all the parts of it. And now my whole family's enjoying it. And it's not just something we put in a pill that goes, oh, this is this one event. Now I got to teach my kid to swallow pills. No, it's all part of every day, just like we salt and pepper our food, as you say. What is I love your saying, a pinch.
Yeah, nutrition in a pinch.
A nutrition in a pinch. Yes, I love
And the
it.
other thing we say is, well, there's two other ones. One is, if you can salt it, you can pluck it.
Oh, that's good. If you salt it, you can plug it.
And then one we recently identified as easy peasy without the queasy.
Oh, that's good. So on part 2, we're going to talk a little bit about my own health aversions, food aversions, that I've had in the past, and why so many of us can overcome that, as I have, and we'll talk more about that. And I just also want to comment that what we're looking for is true wellness, right? That's really what the name of our clinic is. We teach Energy F.L.O.W. And when you get the energy in the body to flow better, when you get the fascia to receive better, when you get the lymph to flow better, you've got more space in there, the oxygen can go through. You need to have iron. You need to have B vitamins. You need to get the soil of the body, the nutrients, which is depleted in our soils, in there so that the energy can flow. This is a huge component, and minerals are part of it. However, you don't get B vitamins and iron in mineral content at the density that you do with organ meats. So keep that in mind as we shift gears to this next. And I want to thank you for what you've plucked out from the universe for all of us, because as a person who had a resistance to organ meat, I know that this has been a game changer for my family in regards to allowing us to enjoy that and to celebrate, as I said, the beauty of the whole animal, even though I don't have to cook it and smell it anymore, which is so fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, champions of the vibe flow community, energy flowing through that body, thank you for sharing this time with us and getting through the entire episode today. I know time is what we're spending here as our currency on this planet as people, and it really does mean a lot that as we devote our time and energy into creating this content, that you stuck with us throughout it. So if you would like more on this particular subject from this expert and get that free gift, make sure to register for our Energy F.L.O.W forum. And you too, with a very nominal price, can access all sorts of upgraded content and deeper dives into the very subjects that you love: energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. As you know, as always on this show and any content that we create, it is for your own health purposes. This is not intended to be advice or medical diagnoses or professional advice. It's purely information that if it resonates with you and you apply it and you upgrade, we love to hear about it. What a great coincidence, and we're happy to be on that journey with you. If this doesn't resonate with you and you know somebody it will, pass it along. And in the meantime, know that we truly are here to show you and explain to you and be with you through this lovely journey of life, and to share our experiences together and help each other upgrade, because that's how we're going to do this, together, collaborating with love at the center. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am so grateful from my heart to yours to share this time, energy, and space with you.